Hello everyone, salam sejahtera, selamat datang and welcome to program Jom Sembang Air or Let's Talk Water. This program is brought by Forum Air Malaysia, FOMCA and WeCam. So if you want to know more about these three NGOs, please check their Facebook page and their website to get to know their activities, get to know them and if you're interested to participate in their events. Program Let's Talk Water is actually divided into three series and 9 parts of panel discussion. Today we are on the fourth part of the panel discussion out of 9, and it is themed around dissecting water disruption. The first panel discussion, we talked about social impact. Second, we talked about understanding water disruption. Third panel, we talked about causes of water disruption. And today we are going to talk about economic perspective when it comes to water disruption. Today we have three panelists. Before that, I just would like to announce that in our e-posters, we have informed that one of the panelists will be Ais Lango. Unfortunately, they are not able to participate today. And Forum Air Malaysia, as the main organizer for this program, have put up a statement on this matter on their Facebook page. Please go and check it out if you want to know more about that particular matter. But I would like to introduce our panelists today. So the first panelist is Encik Amir Hamzah. He is from, Encik Amir Hamzah adalah Naib Presiden and Setiausaha Agung, Sekjen for Dewan Perniagaan Melayu Malaysia, Malay Chamber of Commerce, and he is also the chief for DPMM for Negeri Sembilan. His background is from law, UKM. He has also various professional skills and expertise when it comes to knowledge management, mediator, as well as he has been appointed by the government of Malaysia as a panel pengantara bagi pusat mediasi COVID-19. So Encik Amir Hamzah is actually very, not just when it comes to business sector, I think he is pretty much well-rounded to share his experience on what is the economic impact facing the other side. Because during the first panel, we talked about domestic consumers, but today we really want to see from the economic angle. So I really feel with his vast experience and also his designated role right now as a Sekjen for Malay Chamber of Commerce, he's really the right participant to be here with us today. Sorry, right panelist. Second, we have Engineer Haji Yazid. He is a professional engineer. Right now, he is the head for Negeri Sembilan Water Operators Science. Having said that, before that he was in PAP, and before that he was my neighbor in Span. So we were sharing cubicle side by side. And prior to that, he worked in Shabas, ExxonMobil. So name it, he had moved from oil and gas to water sector, shifting from operator to regulator to water management company. And right now he's heading a water operator. So I believe that he will share what he's doing right now, what are his challenges, and also what he vision, the expectation what we can have in future. So thank you, Engineer Yazid, for spending your time with us today. And last but not least is William. I've known William, I think, about 10 over years now. And William is a long time player in this industry as a management consultant, and he started with KPMG. So they were involved in drafting or putting up the framework to start transformation that we see right now since 2008. So they were involved in that. And right now, he's a principal of his own consulting firm, focusing on strategy and economy. And being a player in the transformation of water services industry with both federal and multiple state government, it will be interesting to see the new ideas, new thought approaches that we may have to take to now bring another level of transformation to say, because our last transformation is 2006. So I think it's a pretty long time right now, right? So it's we already like about 17 over years. So it's time to do the next change. So we really hope we can hear some interesting stuff today from Mr. William. So to all the three panelists, thank you very much. And before I go to my first question to Encik Ami, I would like to let all the attendees in the Zoom, attending through Zoom, please, if you have any questions, put it in the Q&A box. And those who are joining us via Facebook Live, please put your comments in the Facebook Live, so we will pick it up. And any appropriate and relevant questions to the panelists, we will pick it up. So Engineer Amin, before we go into the detailed discussion, right? I would like to know if you can, I'm very sure everybody knows what is water operators, but we would like to know what is Dewan Perniagaan Melayu Malaysia. What is your organization's role? Who do you represent? And what is the economic strength of your members? So Engineer Amin, Encik Amin.
Terima kasih. Selamat pagi dan Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih kerana menjemput Dewan Perniagaan Melayu dalam Jom Sembang Air. Okey, untuk pengetahuan semua, Dewan Perniagaan Melayu ini ditubuhkan sejak tahun 1938 lagi, sebelum merdeka. Kita punya organisasi agak lama dan kita mewakili ekonomi orang Melayu khususnya di dalam ekonomi Malaysia. Dan pada masa yang sama juga kita punya ahli ataupun kita punya apa yang kita wakili ialah suara-suara pemain-pemain industri. Kita ada 72 industri di bawah kami yang sekarang ini bergiat cergas sepanjang tahun daripada 1938 hingga kini lah. Dan kita akan menyuarakan khususnya macam masalah COVID dan sebagainya. Kita menyuarakan suara-suara berkenaan dengan bagaimana impak ekonomi terhadap pengusaha-pengusaha. Selain daripada itu juga kita memberikan maklum balas pengusaha kepada dasar-dasar yang dibawa oleh kerajaan, khususnya demi kepentingan keseluruhannya. Di samping itu juga salah satu dalam objektif kita ialah menjadi penasihat ataupun dalam menggubal undang-undang negara. Jadi kita lihat kepada mana-mana undang-undang yang berkaitan dengan negara yang mempunyai impak kepada industri dan ekonomi, kita akan turut terbabitlah. Kita juga adalah merupakan ahli kepada Persatuan Kebangsaan, Chambers, National Chambers ini terdiri daripada Dewan Perniagaan Melayu, China, India, antarabangsa dan juga di Persatuan Pengilang-Pengilang Malaysia. Jadi kita dari segi representasi kita broad. Jadi kita dapat memberikan maklum balas tu daripada sekecil-kecilnya penjaja, petty traders, sehinggalah sebesar-besarnya multinational.
So I guess despite it is a Malaysian Malay Chamber of Commerce, when come to issue air, I guess the sakit is actually the same across all Chamber of Commerce and industry players. So I guess for today's topic, this will be very relevant to hear from you. How your members are affected. I mean, I'm very sure when this incident happened, either your organization got in touch with the members or members must have got in touch through your meetings. You may have all these conversations. So how your members are affected, especially in terms of business continuity and economic losses. I mean, of course, kalau kita specifically tahun lepas, tambah lagi dengan COVID kan. Tapi kita, let's say we don't really look into we can discuss on the COVID influencing water disruption dan juga business, tapi let's say on a broad scale, what is the impact water disruption to business?
Air ni untuk pengetahuan semula, kalau kita lihat dari segi kepenggunaan air, industri sebenarnya adalah pengguna air terbesar bagi pendapat kita lah. Kerana sebagai contohnya satu kilang pengeluar air botol, pengeluar air botol, dia yang menggunakan air yang melalui RO, reverse osmosis. Dia menggunakan air dengan banyak. Okay. Jadi kalau nak kata impak gangguan bekalan air ke sumber air yang tidak cukup untuk industri, itu amat besar. Sebab kalau kita cerita pasal pelaburan yang sedia ada, kita kena tanya balik, adakah air kita cukup untuk menampung pelaburan sedia ada? Satu. Nombor dua, bila kita nak memanggil orang lain untuk menambah pelaburan, sama ada dalaman atau luar negara, industri itu sendiri, kita perlukan air. Jadi air yang kita kata cerita-cerita di sebenarnya orang tak nampak, sebab isu air ni yang ketara ialah apabila ianya melibatkan rakyat. Rakyat tak ada air, jadi itu menjadi isu yang besar. Kalau kita di industri kita tak ada air, kita tak ada tempat nak suara. Yang boleh buat kita telefon lah, kalau macam di Negeri Sembilan ada Perkhidmatan Polis Sains, kalau di tempat-tempat lain panggil Syabas ataupun SAJ kan. Apabila kita tak ada air. Jadi impak itu besar. Semua sebab satu perkara yang kita tak ada, satu part lah, I think kita akan berbincang pada masa akan datang, pada masa seterusnya, ialah kesan dia amat besar. Suka tidak suka perkembangan air ni, sebab tu kalau kita lihat kecekapan penggunaan air di dalam industri lebih cekap berbanding dengan penggunaan air di dalam domestik. Sebab apa? Kita tahu air itu sukar nak dapat. Jadi kita menggunakan pelbagai kaedah untuk penggunaan semula air yang telah dihasilkan untuk digunakan semula. Pelbagai cara. Jadi saya rasa kalau nak kata air itu hanya terbahagi kepada domestik, tidak, sebenarnya masalah utama adalah juga kepada industri, dan industri merupakan pengguna terbesar air di Malaysia atau di mana-mana pun lah. Apa industri yang tidak menggunakan air? Kalau you buat ternakan ayam, you perlukan air. Kalau you buat ternak pertanian, kan, perlukan air. Sama ada air itu dibawa oleh manusia ataupun air daripada Tuhan, perlukan air. Pengurusan air itu tetap ada. Jadi dari segi industri memang sangat besar. Sama ada kita hendak mengakui perkara tersebut atau tidak, itu saja.
I'm just wondering, Encik Amir, before we move to Haji Yazid, right? Because just now you made a remark saying that memberi impact kepada pelaburan. So right now, you, from your experience on the ground, you rasa dah ada impact ke atas pelaburan ke tidak? Water disruption yang right now happening in Malaysia, is it already impacting pelaburan? Atau risau it will go to that level tapi belum impact lagi?
Bukan, memang ada. Saya rasa itu saya tak nak bagi, itu sign boleh komen tu, ada satu part yang dia boleh komen. Tapi saya nak bagi, memang ada. Sebab contohnya pengalaman saya masa saya jadi CEO untuk buat kilang makanan. Kilang makanan di Pedas. Kita kira jumlah air yang kita gunakan. Ini untuk pengeluaran mi segera, nak keluarkan air botol dan juga biskut dan sebagainya. Kan? Tak cukup. Tak cukup. Jadi yang diberitahu oleh kita, okey, you boleh pakai banyak ni je. Bila dia boleh pakai banyak ni, maksudnya kita terpaksa lah mencatukan ke kita punya pengeluaran. Nampak? So dia akan menghimpit. Kalau kita nak buat pelaburan tambahan pula, isu air jadi faktor utama yang diambil kira. Kalau kita nak buat sesuatu tadi, kita kena kira pula, faktor air ni boleh tak? Selain daripada kecukupan elektrik, itu satu part lagi. Jadi dua sumber utama yang ada pada hari ini adalah air dan juga elektrik. So kita cerita pasal air, maka air adalah sumber yang kita tak boleh lari lah. Sebab kita pun faham kehidupan 70% adalah air. Walaupun kita suka tak suka, kita perlukan air.
Okay. Haji Yazid, so I actually want to follow up what Encik Amir has mentioned, right? Isn't it a loss for water operators sebab kalau jual air dekat industri, and then pada saya tengok tarif mana-mana water operator di Malaysia is jauh lagi tinggi kalau jual dekat industri compared kepada domestik. So isn't it a loss kepada water operator kalau water operator don't supply the amount that is actually demanded? Doesn't make business sense kalau water operator tak dapat jual, kan? So if you can respond to that quickly.
Oh, okay.
Before we move.
Okay. Good morning everybody. Assalamualaikum Cik Amir. Walaupun sekampung ni tak pernah jumpa lagi ni. Okay, basically macam Cik Amir cakap tu ada betulnya, and then ada juga yang perlu kita ketahui macam demand untuk kilang-kilang. Actually kilang-kilang ni ada satu isu lah sebenarnya, because of their designated area. Bila designated area ni masa dalam early stage permohonan kilang tersebut, kita ada every permohonan dia akan through majlis, and dia akan meletakkan berapa demand sebenar dia yang dikendaki oleh kilang tersebut. Okay, ni talking about proses kilang tersebut. So bila at the early stage dia minta contoh a certain amount, tetapi bila kilang tu expand, kita dah area tu kita dah designated dah berapa kita should supply to that particular area. But when they asking for the demand more than what the early stage they request for, and definitely there's a lot of improvement kena ada, macam nak kena tukar pipings, reservoir, and benda-benda on the technical things. Yang itu saya rasa yang perlu dititik beratkan oleh pihak pengilang lah. Air tak jadi masalah. Dekat Negeri Sembilan, you have no problem on water. InsyaAllah, we can supply. But the early stage when you apply for application tu, definitely you need to be more sincere. Actually, how much you're planning for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, or 20 years. ongoings, you know.
So maksudnya apa jumlah kuantiti air tu mencukupi, tetapi infra untuk
Betul.
membekalkan air kepada kawasan yang diperlukan ni, that's where the challenge is. So that will bring me to the question, when people actually paying water tariff or water charges kepada water operator, right? What are we actually paying for? If you can share some breakdown, what is it that people are paying for? And also, I would like to follow up on that particular note, whether the current charges is sufficient to achieve the expected performance. I mean, what we are expecting from you, the current charges sufficient or not? Sebab saya tahu, saya tak boleh cakap saya tahu semua lah. From little pengalaman I have, rasanya macam pihak industri dengan pihak commercial, tarif dia actually cover the cost. It is the domestic tariff yang tak cover the cost. So maybe today you can share with us a little bit on what are we paying for and whether it's sufficient for across the board, all these different users.
Basically, everybody knows nearly 95% raw water we're getting from sungai, from the river. And we go to the basic one, yeah. You tahulah sekarang ni sungai macam mana dia punya quality of air sungai sekarang ni, from the murky water, and we process until to the clear water. Okay, then how much that we are using a chemical to restore these issues? You know that every month kita punya chemical pricing every year our chemical pricing increasing. Okay, that one is a chemical. Okay, on the treatment plant itself, and then from the treatment plant towards to the consumer, we pump the water. Okay, when we pump the water, definitely electricals involved in this, electric involved. So there's another cost, which is we paying every month million of TNB nya bill. Okay, that one is chemical TNB. Okay, and then how about this bila kita pump to the consumer, to the reservoir, to consumer, the aging pipe. Saya rasa aging pipe dekat Negeri Sembilan ni nearly about 4,000 something kilometer. Okay, which is kalau kita comparekan daripada KLIA, probably that sampai ke India, there is AC pipe, is a aging pipe, sama age dengan saya punya pipe, umur. Okay, which is is a very fragile. At any time boleh burst. So when there is a burst, definitely there will be a cost on the maintenance. Aging pipe need to be tukar. What do you call that? Some more authority punya requirement. Kalau nak tukar pipe, it's not only tukar pipe. You kena buat replace pipe you kena what do you call that? Kena buat resurfacing balik semula. All this is cost. Okay, daripada chemical, daripada tenaga, daripada aging pipe, daripada constructions, whereas water, raw water, also we need to pay to the state government. So ni apa lagi? And then every year the contractor punya charges on the maintenance also increase. Okay, and we appoint what I call that, these professionals on chemicals, all engineers, all experienced. Every year also their salary need to be increased, increments, bonus, and all the equipments also it's not cheap lah sekarang ni, semua increase. So what else ya kita tinggal? So that's why I said mostly I think that most of the operator will be agree we are more towards to the just tolong saja on the charity, and then yet the tariff increase pun tak ada juga. Ni apalah contoh this SPAN, they have made the calculation lah, if I not quote me if I'm wrong SPAN kalau ada actually dia punya to cost to treat 1,000 meter cube is about RM2.31. Okay, and average tariff kita domestic average throughout Malaysia lebih kurang 52 sen. Betul William per meter cube. And then kalau for the first meter cube, 20 meter cubes kita cuma bayar RM10.40. Okay, RM10.40, where the actual what the spend calculate is RM46.20. So situ dah nampak dia punya, there's a difference between the
Itu
actual.
domestik ke industri? Cik Aziz,
Huh?
itu domestik ke industri?
Yeah, domestic. Kalau industri itu not much difference lah. In talking about industry and in domestic, because of domestic dia dekat Negeri Sembilan about 75%, sorry 80% or domestic and 20% more on industry lah. So daripada situ kita dah nampak dah jurang dia between the actual price that we are process dengan di ni apa the actual, kalau ikut apa per meter cube the actual dengan yang kita punya tarif. Jauh beza, sebab RM30 bezanya. And then saya make comparison dengan Singapore. How Singapore do? Okay, they charge $1.21, whereas RM3.62 per meter cube. Okay, for 40 meter cubes. Okay, beza kan? RM3.63 dengan 52 sen domestic. Okay, for every 20 meter cubes they use lebih kurang 24.20 cents dolar, lebih kurang RM87.60 di Singapore. Okay, so Singapore dengan Negeri Sembilan tu jauh beza dia.
Boleh jelas sikit. Sarah, anak
Yes,
ada tu anak sikit tadi. Yang berkenaan dengan Singapore ni, when we make comparison. Saya rasa satu comparison yang kita kena silap bila kita buat foreign exchange.
Oh, yalah.
What is the cost of doing business in Singapore and what is doing cost of doing business in Malaysia? It's two different things. So kalau kita lihat dari segi sudut industri, dari segi perniagaan, whatever cost it is. Kita tak boleh lari. Itu dunia perniagaan. Jadi dunia perniagaan maksudnya kita kena ambil cost whatever dan kepala keuntungan lah. Betul tak? We can agree on that. Cuma soalan dia yang mungkin yang you kata tadi, okay, macam di Negeri Sembilan, saya ambil contoh sebab kita Negeri Sembilan tadi kata 80% adalah pengguna domestik, manakala 20% daripada industri. Soalan yang mungkin saya nak minta, boleh saya tanya ialah berapa banyak yang actually yang daripada industri ini yang membayar dia punya tu dan kemudian benda tu digunakan untuk menampung domestik punya cost. Ataupun dianya adalah break even saja. Because kalau kita nak cerita, bagi kita untuk pandangan dari sudut industri, keperluan dan sebagainya, dari segi kos itu kita tak boleh lari lah. Kita tak boleh lari. Jadi yang kita nak tahu sekarang, kalau kita boleh tahu Cik Aziz, berapa sebenarnya apa portion yang macam cross subsidi lah daripada industri kepada domestik.
Dia kalau Cik Amir nak kira subsidi ni tak ada lah. One third daripada total billings ataupun one third daripada amount collection per month tu daripada industri lah dan selebihnya daripada domestik actually. So that's the apalah.
Sebab kos dia sama. Kos antara domestik, kos dengan commercial tu sama. Cuma bezanya dari segi charge pulangan. Jadi soalan yang saya nak tahu ialah berapa banyak yang actually daripada industri ni yang dapat menampung domestik.
If I can quickly respond to that, Encik Amir, because probably if Haji Yazid can respond, after this Haji Yazid can respond. Likely the specific numbers because we didn't prepare this or we didn't ask them ahead, so maybe the specific numbers right now offhand dia mungkin tak ada something that can be responded. Kalau kita terima, we will actually post up in our in the organizers Facebook page. But I would like to quickly respond to what Encik Amir asked, and then I would like William to respond to this because William has worked with multiple states, so maybe it's a good snapshot. First and foremost, generally, yes, when it comes to water sector, one consumer ban actually do support the gap that another consumer ban creates. Macam domestic is actually just now based on what Haji Yazid himself said, 52 cents per cost is RM2.31, but domestic only pay 52 cents. That itself shows somebody kena bayar because it's still a cost that is actually happening, right? It's not even a budget, it's an estimation of the actual cost. So likely commercial dengan industry punya consumers will be paying for this cross subsidizing this component. But of course, we do not have regulator. We didn't invite regulator for this session. But one component that likely regulators or ministry will look at is when come to the non-domestic users. The non-domestic users are using water to create a business opportunity, while domestic users are using for their own lively consumption, personal hygiene, cleaning up, and washing, and all, like lively punya consumption. Having said that, kita tahu our Malaysian domestic water users are huge. Dia punya consumption is double daripada what we really need to use. That's a fact. So the concern is, this is where I would like to throw kepada William. Our domestic and industrial, non-domestic consumers from commercial and industry sector,
Sure.
I think it's fair for them to cross-subsidize the basic needs. But are they also cross-subsidizing wasteful behavior of domestic users? So I think in that case, that definitely will cause frustration kan. Sebab normally premium customers will expect premium services. Betul tak, Jamie? I think this is where eventually, everything boils into. Premium customer will expect premium services, but unfortunately, premium charges are going towards likely wasteful behavior of consumers. If I see macam the target of CASA is 180 liter per person per day. Tapi I'm not sure Negeri Sembilan, like in Selangor, it's about 230 already. So William, if you can just share a little bit, from your view as an economist, right? So I guess you do not have any side to take right now, you don't have any axe to grind. So from your perspective, isn't this distorting a little bit the true value?
Yeah, thank you, Purita. Okay, a very interesting question. I think the last 18 years involved in the Malaysian water sector reformation, transformation, there are major issues. In the most ideal situation, the cost of water, as Encik Amir mentioned just now, is the same, whether it's domestic or non-domestic. It's the same because you produce the same type of water. But the difference here is basically when you come to industry and domestic. And then you have to look into this factor of our economy, okay? And we are still a developing nation. We still got the layers of demographics, from the B40s to the M to the Ts and so on and so forth. And at the same time, we got this issue of attracting investments to come into Malaysia. Therefore, Malaysia has took a stand at the moment for increasing ban tariff, as you know. So increasing ban tariff is the more water you use, then you pay more. In theory, it sounds correct. But of course, di Malaysia, dengan kita punya social fabric berlainan sikit, so there's a lot of cross-subsidy between domestic and non-domestic. If you take Penang or Negeri Sembilan, the numbers that Encik Yazid mentioned just now, there is a very difficult problem for the state government, industry, especially state government and the Malaysian government, to really just put everything on the industrial side, because the more you cross-subsidize at the industry, the more theoretically expensive water in all the commercial and industrial. And worse off, when there is disruption, that's going to be even worse. So the point I'm trying to make here is that at the end of the day, we really need to sit down and understand the question of tariff in terms of services. And domestic needs to understand that you cannot prolong this cross-subsidization. Eventually, it will lead to disinvestment, perhaps disinvestment in Malaysia. And what happens when there's disinvestment in Malaysia, okay, from industries? Then you got the biggest problem of the economy growing. Without the economy growing, then what are we talking about domestic? When there's no job creation, there is nothing to talk about. So while I'm not pro-domestic, I'm not pro-commercial, but what I believe is eventually we must reach a point where Malaysians have to understand that the tariff got to reflect the true cost of water. And the true cost of water, later I think it's a subject of ecosystem. Right now it's just purely cost recovery. Sekarang I think the industry is deficit 2 billion. If the industry is deficit 2 billion, means apa-apa you buat sekarang pun tak boleh buat apa-apa, because you just can't develop. And as Encik Yazid mentioned just now, I'm not citing water operators, but the cost has increased tremendously over the past 20 to 30 years. And if tariff does not even reflect some increase and goes to the consumer, then we got a big problem, because consumer have to remember, without jobs, without industries, there is no job creation. Without no job creation, then what are we talking about? Cross subsidizing the domestic. And there are formulas, and I think there are mechanisms that the government has spoke about how to address the domestic situation. It's just that many people don't want to listen the mechanism to address this issue. When we talk about hardcore poor, the B40s, there are mechanisms. And I think some states are trying it, but overall, a lot of people don't want to hear about the mechanism. It's just about people cannot afford, which, just one more minute, Punita, which brings me to this issue. The World Bank said that Malaysia in the next 8 to 10 years will reach high income nation. And then MOF cited that in the next 10 years, by 2030, we should be able to reach developed status country. So what does it mean? If we reach developed status company, if we reach high income, doesn't mean high income is high salary, high income nation, and we are still looking at low tariff at domestic area, then we got the huge mismatch of expectation. The country wants to grow, but there are areas that is asking domestic not to pay. How do you grow? And industries are, I won't say suffering. Overall aspect, commercial industry in Malaysia is one of the cheapest tariffs in Asia. And I think Yazid will agree to that. In Malaysia, when you compare against Asia. But the thing is, if we still keep on talking the same issue that the domestic cannot afford, and there are mechanisms to address, then I don't think this issue we're talking about will always be there. What services do you think they are providing? How do you be transparent? And so there's nothing to be transparent when the cost cannot cover when the price cannot cover the cost. There's nothing to talk about at the moment. Of course, I don't want to talk anything about the other issues, like whether there is too expensive or too cheap, or just a different story altogether. But right now, the cost can't even, your price can't even the cost. So what transparency? What are we paying for? Question will be, it will be debated until time comes. Unless the industry has reached certain level of recovery and it is on a positive surplus, then I think that question is very relevant. What am I paying for, and why is there disruption? Why is there quality of water issue? If I'm paying the right price, right now we're not even paying at the right price, and that is one of the biggest issue Malaysia is facing. That's my view.
William, I just want to expand a little bit, because this is also, I think, to sort of like, I have similar concerns what Encik Amir have mentioned, you see, and also you rightly put. One is, yes, we want to give water to public, but at the same time, we are going to lose, our B40s will become B50, B60. Kalau the pelaburan investment leave the country, there's no jobs for them to even earn money, right? So I think one is cost, another one is value, right? Cost is what Haji Yazid is experiencing when he wants to produce from X quality and quantity to Y quality and quantity. That is cost. But water has a value. All right. My concern is, has it being measured properly? The actual impact and costs, is it sort of like limited, very direct kepada limit kepada water operator saja? This is the quality and quantity I'm getting. This is what I'm processing. I'm delivering. This is my electrical, chemical, aging infrastructure and service cost and whatever not. Tapi what about the rollover effect kalau tak dapat air? Are we bringing in losses kepada businesses dalam this calculation? Because when you say that there is a mechanism, but people don't want to talk about mechanism, had that mechanism been shared in such a way that the policymaker, agencies, the relevant agencies and agencies understand? Has it been translated or not? Because I think cost is one thing, value is another. Kalau kita boleh tunjuk gap between cost and value, mungkin policymakers akan open their eyes.
Yeah.
William. Yeah.
And from my experience, I think the issue is a bit of communication. The communication issue. I think dari segi the water operator themselves, they understand. But okay, the only slight thing is water operators are very silo. They look at water operations per se, but as you know, the water value cuts across just water operation. It cuts to even the raw water. It cuts into after the water is being used. So that cycle, I mean, we check after this, but that's another bigger issue. So if you want to really calculate the value of water, then actually we are paying very, very little at the moment. Right now, we are very skewed towards just the cost of operator, which is not wrong, but it doesn't reflect the value of water at all. It just reflects the cost of science or ice liner or whatever. So if you're inefficient, then the cost naik lah. But that's where the regulator comes in. The regulator is supposed to try to ensure all water operators are operating at certain efficiency, and they have the KPIs. So coming back to your question is, I think the mechanism is there, the communications to the public, the communications to the politicians, the communication to the parliament, that has not been very clear in terms of how to manage this thing, and hence why industries are also, I wouldn't say complaining, rising up issues. How come water is expensive? Because I think clear information needs to be produced, which is not available at the moment.
Okay, so Jamie, I think I want to get back to you because this is actually having conversation response to the question you posed. One big challenge yang I can see, I do not know, maybe this is something that you have to confirm, is non-domestic consumers charges are used to cross-subsidize domestic consumers. That's one thing for sure. Second thing is, when there's a disruption, the first one that will not receive water will be likely non-domestic customers. And unfortunately, when this happens, whether the regulator who's regulating services are looking this as a significant impact when they drive their policies and strategies. Because right now seems like the policies and strategies when there's a disruption is protecting domestic consumers, which to a degree it's fair. So I think I'm really wondering whether there's any agency dalam kerajaan yang looking at your plight when you are losing, when there's no water disruption. Do you feel there's an agency actually looking at your plight?
Ada orang lagi bawa operator air ke mahkamah.
Okay.
Yes, I think.
So,
yes.
Sebagai kalau nak cerita sikit pasal Dina, hak pengguna. Sebab last week we have our discussion with panelists on kepenggunaan consumer. Who you define consumer? So this is policy makers. So we define the consumer. Who is the consumer? Industry, is it consumer? In our plan, we say that yes, industry also is consumer. But in the eyes of the policy makers, consumer is restricted to private entities, that is people. So we are not considered consumer. We are considered as industry and etc. Whereas as business concern, we understand ourselves as consumer. So we have our own consumer right for services that we receive. And for the service that we receive, there is a service level that we have to look at. Right? Okay, water disruption. Let's say about water disruption. Okay, what is the impact to industries? Is always change. It's change between one industry to another industry. Let's say kalau industri yang buat pembotolan air, kan, kalau water disruption ada berlaku, dia boleh tahan 2 hari atau 3 hari. After that, dia kena stop operation. So that loss, I don't know how science tackle that loss. Satu part. Second part, kita ada industri pertanian. Right, they use normal water. Tapi kita ada fertigasi now. That's why I said dalam industri we are evolving. Kita ni berkembang. Pembesaran kita secara dinamik berdasarkan kepada permintaan yang akan datang.
Betul.
Jadi macam tadi Cik Yazid cakap, dia kata okay, we look at the processes when we are starting development, everything they put how much the water quantity that we like. That is developer. They are not talking to the industry. They are talking about the developer is putting in their plan. The town planner are trying to put in the plan how much they think that water consumption for that particular development they need, right? But question arises, after 10 years, do you think that the development will be the same? So here, as an industry people, As an industry player and industry people, what we have to do, we cannot do like addressing. We have to be forecasting at the same thing. So everybody as a business entity will start to forecast what is the demand in 5 years time, 10 years time, and what is the cost. Yes, come back to original, back to the question. We agree as industry player, kalau sains pun di bawah kita pun sama juga, kita kata you are also industry player, kita faham masalah kita cost. Sebab tu kalau kita cerita pasal cost dalam pembuatan dalam perniagaan juga, kita hari ini patut dia dapat untung ke dia patut bekerja sebagai satu elemen hak asasi. That is the very penting dalam perniagaan untuk kita tentukan sama ada perniagaan yang dilaksanakan memang berasaskan kepada keuntungan. Ada perniagaan yang diasaskan untuk kemasyarakatan. So that is important. Tapi kalau syarikat air pun nak buat untung without limit, tak ada ceiling dia pun tak kena juga. Kan? Jadi kalau kita, sebab tu saya kata dia punya balance dalam industri ni is we need to balance. So dia punya balance tu yang kita patut lihat lah. Dan cost benefit kepada dia tu macam mana. Jadi kalau kita kata gangguan bekalan air ni tadi, sebab kita tahu operator air kalau dia bukan mendapatkan keuntungan yang besar, dan tak patutlah kita pula sebagai industri pergi saman dia. Kan? Sebab itu bukan di bawah kawalan dia. Right? Dulu kalau sebagai contoh ni lah, operator air yang ada di Malaysia sekarang, tak silap saya dalam 30 tahun je usia dia. Dulu pipe ni semua dibuat oleh kerajaan. Operator have to tukar this pipe. So investment yang dibuat itu sepatutnya siapa yang patut buat this investment? Dan question mark, siapa yang patut buat investment? Dia macam tol lah. Kalau saya lihat jalan ni macam tol lah. Air ni, saluran air ni kita anggap macam tol. Okay? Kalau kita anggap dia sebagai tol, so kalau industri nak guna banyak ataupun domestik nak guna banyak, kawasan perumahan makin besar makin macam tol lah. Okay, pipe ni berapa sen nak kena bayar? So kita kena fikir dalam keadaan pelbagai method lah. Kita tak boleh lagi duduk dalam bentuk calculation kita zaman dulu. Sebab macam kita kata kos meningkat. Pada masa yang sama betul kos meningkat tapi harga barang semakin turun. Macam mana? Maksudnya dari segi pemain industri kita berfikiran macam mana nak bagikan benda tu boleh meet kepada kita punya consumer yang nak pakai. Kan? Sebab kalau semuanya nak mahal, semua mahal. So everything mahal lah. Tapi kalau kita fikir balik dalam konteks perniagaan, yang penting ialah pelanggan kita, apa pelanggan kita, kos berapa yang pelanggan kita boleh beli. Dan juga macam saya tengok, kalau kita kata 20 meter cube itu domestik, kita hadkanlah 20 meter cube itu dah banyak tau 20 meter cube ni. Kan? You pergi lebih daripada 200% nak charge. Then it's fair. Untuk tolong rakyat, 20 meter cube itu 4 swimming pool kan tak salah saya. Banyak tu.
Cukup.
Okay, William, I think you want to respond to Encik Amir, but before that, now Encik Amir have shared the pain point of industry when come to water disruption, when they feel like, not they feel, it's a fact, the unbalanced approach in managing it. I nak dengar daripada Haji Aziz. What is water operators' pain point when you have water disruption? Are you affected? If you are also affected, please share what is that and how you are affected.
Okay, actually mostly operator ni, water operator ni kalau water disruption ni, memang kita pun sendiri pun tak nak water disruption ni what happens. Contoh ya, because we will be lost a lot. Especially on our kena our additional cost. Contoh kita terpaksa siapkan all the tankers, kita deploy semua all the our kita punya staff apa semua. So and then the affected on our monthly punya calculation. So you know, example, lately last year, somewhere early November, kita ada issue on shutdown at Linggi treatment plant. Okay, and we cost about dekat Seremban affected account lebih kurang dalam 8,800. Okay, whereas in PD somewhere around 36,000 account affected. So within that 5 days, affected tu because of the third party punya issues, and kita lost banyak. And kita shame to our ni apa jugalah, malu juga kepada ni apa, kita punya customer semua. So especially kalau you talking about telephone ni, tak payah cerita lah, every second they are complaining. People are complaining bila nak dapat air, but they don't know that people don't know that we are struggling to to get back the water supply semula, so again lah, a lot of things lah. I don't think operator suka sangat dengan disruption ni. I see.
Okay, I just want to follow up dengan what Encik Amir have asked, right? The issue is whether water operators are supplying water at profiting percentage kind of approach, or is it something that is being done based on like quote unquote social obligation? We do know there is a regulator, Suruhanjaya Perkhidmatan Air Negara overseeing. So what is the profits that is allowed for? No, I'm not asking specific for your this thing, but in general, are there like a rule of thumb that they apply, or do they control how much revenue, sorry, not in terms of revenue, in terms of profits that water operator actually make? Is there a control mechanism being set, knowing that this is a basic rights for everybody?
There is. That's why I said on these issues, I think that the SPAN, yeah, you know very well, ni apa, Punita. So the question is supposed to be SPAN to answer it, because of we have our own KPI. Like last time the Jabatan ni apa, I Pahang pun ada mention about it. Everything's we need to follow our KPI. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and William, if you want to quickly respond to what Encik Amir's frustration, like their what is that, non-domestic consumers feel like they are not being recognized as a consumer, and their plight is not being heard. To a point, I actually feel like this: when you have one private sector want to take a legal action on another private sector, I think there is a gap in what the ministry and the regulator is doing, because isn't that what they're supposed to do, something to make sure that things are balanced?
Yeah.
Because I think I do not know how good this thing will, what is the benefit of these actions would be.
Yeah, Purita, I think like I said, I look from three perspectives: water supply to consumer, and consumer including commercial industry as well. So you cannot say they are not, you see. But I think you have to be fair. You have to look at from a legal and regulatory perspective. What was a service contract? Is there a real service level agreement between 99% uninterruptible water? Is there such a thing in the contract? Which I don't find it there when we sign up for water, is it? So a lot of people assume that it must be there, but I don't know whether how clear that service level contract is, or is just by principle. Okay, that one maybe someone to help us. Second is the root cause water problem, because the root cause of water disruption can be unscrupulous polluters, can be unscheduled maintenance, can be asset operation efficiency, can be climate change, can be so many things. So is it the root responsibility of the water operator when there is a root cause of river pollution and the water treatment is stuck, and then is for the water operator to send the lorry tangki air? Is that part and parcel of the deal, or is because of social obligation as of the past? So this is something that we have to think about. The third one is economics. Of course, the economics I think is important, and this is where actually Amir is talking about. There is no framework, there is no mechanism to measure anything at the moment. The easiest measure is to go to setiap company and say, okay, air disruption, berapa you lost in terms of your sales and so on and so forth, and come quantify a number. But I think that is not good enough. So the way I think maybe the government should look into is perhaps a more holistic framework within the industry players through the right association and the ministry to develop just a key framework. And my view is this: the framework. If we are measuring about loss, we are talking about loss a framework of loss to the economy contribution to the GDP. Okay, not just the company itself. I know the company is important, but we are talking the whole country here. And when we talk about the loss of economic contribution to GDP, I also must say we have to look at the loss along the way of the supply chain, because one company stop in producing a intermediary product will affect another company. Okay, and that's what we call supply chain. And the government has to look into a framework to calculate the whole impact. And if the impact, and if this whole impact is, let's say, X, and if the total revenue of the water operator is Y, for example, and if X is more than Y, means the total loss of the industry and the supply chain, we talk about input-output model, the contributory economy is higher than the profit or revenue or supply, whatever you call it, of water operator, then I think government intervention in some way needs to be there, because it's important. We are not talking about 1-2 countries. We are talking about the loss of economic contribution to the country, to the GDP, due to this disruption. That mechanism, I think, still needs to be studied and needs to be talked about. But as soon as the loss of economic to GDP, for example, is lesser than the revenue derived, then I think perhaps again, depending on the cause of the disruption, maybe water operators are accountable, maybe, okay? And that is a framework that nobody has talked about, and nobody wants to bring it up, because one is difficult in calculating. Second, we are talking about huge amounts of value, financial value, and if we make a wrong move, it sends the wrong messages to people. Are you asking the government to pay? Are you asking, what are you trying to ask? But I think that holistic measure of that loss of economic contribution along the value chain is most important. And right now, it's because nobody has studied it, nobody has looked into it, so we just look at the current situation. My company stopped making for 3 days, this I'm losing. But I think the government needs to understand that it has far-reaching impact, not just the company, but along the value chain. And that sort of framework is not there yet. Okay.
Can I interfere, Punita? Sorry, William. I think that this what you mentioned about this roadmaps. I think that is most important, William. I mean, you agree with that? This planning for futures.
Yeah, I thought you know. Okay, since you brought that up, interesting. Can I just interject with the question? So you know that the government through this transformation developed this for every water operator 30-year master plan and the 3-year rolling plan. Okay, so what has happened is the 3-year business plan has been very diligently put into the regulator every time. But one thing I observed, because consulting with companies as well, no one relooks back into the 30-year master plan. And this addresses Encik Amir's question of, you ingat company tak expand, okay? And that is one of the areas that I think the water operator and regulator need to look, because not just the 3-year plan, because it affects your master plan as well. Because your master plan that also needs to be recalibrated, need to rechange based on what's happening historically and moving forward. And I think that's something that is not being addressed at the moment. A lot of focus is on the 3-year business plan, but not the 30-year master plan, because the 30-year master plan, as I know it, the planning for the water treatment plant, the planning for water resource, the planning for every distribution line is there. Okay, it's just that it's not updated. Let me rephrase that. Maybe not updated as you do the 3-year rolling plan in relation to your 30-year master plan. So I think the system and process ada is just penggunaan dia kena lebih more discipline lah saja.
Can you agree, Mr. William, if we say that in this water context, water is being put not the highest priority in terms of planning, okay? In terms of planning, is because easy water is very easy in Malaysia, so why we have to put it as a priority, So if water is scarce, then people will start to say, oh, this is our priority and what we have to do, just like Singapore did, because they know that they cannot depend water from Malaysia throughout, right? So they start to do a lot of initiative and doing all that stuff. So that is one part. I agree with you when we say about the supply chain. And when we are doing the supply chain, none of our business planners put actually water operator as a part of their supply chain.
Of course.
Because we assume that it's already, it might be there. And also tenaga, it's not in our supply chain because we never think about that. So it's highly time, it's highly time now that we have to put that in our ecosystem, in the business ecosystem, and also in for the water operators to put inside their roadmap also, their ecosystem, that the business industry, they have to look into various type of industries. They cannot just put, okay, industry. No. Because if you need to classify that, then you will know which is, you can prioritize, which cannot be have a water distraction and which we have to, because the impact, as what you just now said, calculation, if we do the right calculation on the GDP impact, then you will know which have a greater impact to the GDP, and that will actually do. I just like to put something for Punita, for panel. Encik Yazid, sepanjang COVID PKP, do you do analyze water punya consumption di peringkat domestik? Is it increasing? Kan? Berapa increase dia? From bulan 3 tahun lepas sampai sekarang lah kita ada 2 kali PKP, 3-4 kali PKP. Do we actually do some studies on that particular area? Because now when you cannot do in industry at home, at the industry side, they go back, right? They go back and they start to use. Buat kuih dah tak boleh buat di kedai, dia tukar balik di dekat rumah. So the water increase. So how do you balance up this? So nobody is willing to look into this issue. I don't think so. I don't think so. Correct me if I'm wrong. That the operators actually do this calculation and look at this data. This is happening in our country now. We cannot deny that because that will change our new norms. So if we look at our new norms now, going forward, we have to recalibrate everything of what we have already planned. You see, because that changed the whole landscape. Dari segi Dewan, kita look at what is the changes on the impact to the businesses, and businesses give us response. What kind of changes that they need, And sorry to say, some policy makers are not changing rapidly. I say rapid, kena segera, tak slow, biasa slow and steady like nothing happened. But the industry is changing. As I said tadi, yang niaga dulu dekat ada kedai, sekarang nak masuk ke dalam rumah and do that. Do you do that? So now we have another loss. Kan dulu kita boleh recover from the industry side. Untuk tampung ni sekarang yang industri ni dapat 20 lagi tinggi. That's why I said tadi, the only way that one part, whether we like it or not, we have to change our policy. Okay, I'm talking about myself as a consumer. We have to make sure that 20 cubic meter, yes, we pay at the right price because it's essential. Kita panggil benda yang essential lah, kan? Tapi lepas daripada tu, tapi kena juga ambil kira tau, kalau anak dia 12 macam mana? Jangan kira pula anak.
I think you're right. Cik May, actually, I really love this conversation. There's plenty of things that we need to look at. One thing saya rasa from maybe Cik Yazid have to confirm it. Memang all these calculations are being done. And regulator pun collect this data. They also publish the data about what is the per capita consumption for domestic, non-domestic, whatnot. Cuma how that information being used for what purpose? That's where I think the context you are raising coming on board. So whether the regulators are forward thinking and preparing themselves, or are they continuously firefighting? But I do hope there's someone from regulator also listening, or if not right now, maybe later they can watch and then use this information to design new policies and new approaches. Just basically on what you said, even like I myself, when I was working in a corporate sector, my water consumption is about 200 liters per person per day. But since I started working from home, I realized my water consumption is 327 liters per person per day. So when the data is being published, when it's average out, dipuratakan, nampak macam tak teruk. Tapi individually, a lot of us, our consumption about 10 to 12 hours a day happening outside our domestic premises. It's happening in our commercial buildings, because most of us are working outside, kan? So it will be. That is an amazing suggestion where I feel like time to look into 2020 data to see whether Malaysians are really using 230 liters per person per day or far higher macam dalam kes saya sendiri. When I calculate 327, that's the actual consumption. Because once you started working from home, you realize your consumption individually is so much. But for the water operator, that consumption kind of spread out. 2/3 happening at home, 1/3 happening in the industry. So that behavior, policies need to be put in place for domestic behavior punya changes, and then how to redesign based on new norm for business sector. Because I really hope this is a conversation that probably we need to have a spin-off session dengan regulator, because I think there's a need to relook into the policies. Policies dulu dah kena berubah. Because right now my concern is whether the policymakers and the regulators are firefighting. Because water operators memang dah firefighting. Kalau kita tengok based on tariff, kalau something yang RM2.31 hanya orang bayar 50 sen, that means firefighting. Tunggu something bocor tanpa lah. I don't know Haji Yazid, I think that's what's happening lah. Tunggu something bocor tanpa, bukan plan it. Oh, ini akan gagal dalam 6 bulan. So 3 bulan sebelum tu saya dah kena reply. I don't think that's how the approach is. So I think that you are right. That is really essential. But you also, from what you say and what what William was sharing earlier, right? I think driving circularity bukan sekadar dalam water services, but every single aspect tu kena drive the secularism. Because right now we are not using any circularity concept. And the point you raised, supply chain ecosystem. I think that is a perfect analogy. You know, kalau policymakers or regulators do not come up with this kind of white papers to guide business sectors for their own sustainability, that they have to build in energy sector as the supply chain ecosystem, water as the supply chain ecosystem, I think there's a big danger. So because that is what will help the 30-year business plan that is being prepared is appropriate. Okay, before we move on in this conversation, I have a last question kepada Haji Yazid, because Haji Yazid may have to leave very soon. I think it is time for him to find some more additional capital works untuk support science, Haji Yazid, I'm not sure. So I have a question for you. Like it or not, the water tariff, especially for some consumer bands, are super low, artificially low, right? Do you have any idea, or how do you vision it, that to slowly bring up kepada what is appropriate? Because right now I know not much is being done, especially untuk yang tarif yang extremely low. Mechanisms that in place is not really being fully used. So in order to bring up and make people appreciate the true value, do you think there is a way that things can be done, or water operators have given up?
Put this way lah, saya rasa benda ni it's not only a water operator need to do some awareness program in their own. Actually the public also, especially macam industries, you need to have some plannings. The government also need to do some study, as what macam Mr. William mentioned just now, because of we do have our 30 years punya plannings, okay. On the we need to have some roadmap I mentioned just now. We need to have a water management, okay, and then this the water visions, what we are planning, rather than we accommodate ourselves just to do some cost cuttings, to understand the publics on the to make it more awareness, understand them. That is the things lah. Saya rasa banyak benda-benda ni yang kita boleh bincangkan for the future future topics, more specific on how to improve, how to make sure that kita boleh boost up the industry back to the high standard of water supply. Punita.
Okay, and I also would like to raise a few questions daripada audience here. So I think earlier we heard about daripada Encik Amir mentioning about the biggest industries affected is drinking water bottlers, right? They are the biggest affected. Tapi one of the question daripada Dr. Subramaniam Karupanan, he actually saying, are the drinking water bottlers aggravating the supply and demand situation of drinking water? I mean, he's saying Klang Valley, but let us take even in Negeri Sembilan stage. Are they actually aggravating? So or do they have a significant impact on your supply and demand chain? Haji Aziz.
Come back balik semula, Mr. Punita.
Are the drinking water bottlers aggravating the supply and demand situation of drinking water? This
Okay.
particular industry.
So, ni talking about this bottle ke? Macam mana tu?
Yes, the bottled water suppliers. Are they actually aggravating? Their consumption is so high, they're actually aggravating the demand and supply.
Oh yes, definitely. There will be.
Water.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
Okay, but so who actually then allows these businesses to thrive if they are affecting across the board? So is it water operators, one of the agencies have to give clearance for these businesses to thrive, or is it some other agencies yang
I think
tapi you end up supplying?
This is the best some other agencies then this is like a general ni Punita to address these issues.
Okay. Another thing is, another questions that I think maybe we have to take it up before you leave is, they want to know whether there's James Warren, he wants to know whether there's something positive in the management or transformation of water operators that people might not be aware of to support industrial use, such as what PUB has done for Singapore. I think most recently between Indah Water dengan Ais Selangor, also they have done some arrangement, right, to reclaim treated effluent.
Central water.
So is there something that science is looking at as well to reclaim?
So far we do this, to just ensure that the water supply is sustained. We do some, we're planning for the ORS of river systems, and some of these, we do a campaign on safe water, recycle water for the industries. That is part of these moving on programs for science.
Okay. Thank you, Haji Aziz. So before you leave, is there anything that you'd like to say? But Encik Amir dengan Mr. William, please stay. We are going to continue for another 15-20 minutes.
Is that we need a conversation between Mr. Amir, especially Rumban hometowns, yeah. So we can talk on the tea times. I think it's a lot of questions that I need to address to Encik Amir kita, and even though to William also, yeah. So this is a good platform for us to do a conversations, and I think that you help us as an operator. We really need help from the industries, help from the publics, to ensure that our commitments, to supply clean water to the consumers on the higher levels. So furthermore, that we try our best as a science. We try our best to accommodate every of our customers, to ensure that they are happy with our service. Okay, Punita, Tiame.
Okay.
Kita jumpa.
Kita di Seremban nanti.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Bye. So I think we have to let Haji Aziz go because he already informed me earlier he have a meeting in KL, so he have to leave now. So I think let us continue our conversation. Haji Amir, Encik Amir, I want to come back to you on the aspect where businesses tend to get blamed as one of the polluters causing water disruption. I think that's what happened in Selangor side, most of the situation, right? So are there any possible steps, agency like yours, Chamber of Commerce, to self-regulate members to get them more disciplined and more responsible? So, it's not like, so that the entire segment of consumers doesn't get blamed. Do you have any initiatives or programs that you're putting in place or you're thinking to put in place?
On part of polluters, it's actually come back to the original businessman, whether they have their conscience, dia ada conscience dia ataupun dia kata sifat prihatin dia kepada alam sekitar. Dan benda tu ada, one part yang kita tak ada ialah regulators. When the regulators make an enforcement on that particular part polluters, You buat denda RM5,000, RM10,000, apa ada? You should bang up them, pay all yang you affected, berapa kena affected, 30 million, charge to them. That should be the way. Barulah the business yang nak buat pollution, dia pun fikir, I buat ni I tak guna, I tak boleh. And then dia bukan dia je. Dia himself, the directors, the shareholders, put that in our regulation, that you can get some discipline there. Walaupun I'm representing chambers, but we have to put what at stake because of one person create that affected everybody. So for example, like in Selangor, there are twice it happened, right? So this kind of we don't want this kind of businessmen also, because they will actually affected everybody. Other businesses have to close because of that. You know? So pun tak kena juga. So we have to take serious action, very serious. No, kalau di China mungkin hukum tembak kot. Boleh. Baru semua orang takut nak pollute water, because water is something that penting, kepentingan hidup kan, untuk kepentingan hidup. So you affected 2 million people, you affected 10 million people. Hey, RM10,000, what? 100,000, what? Nothing. So you have to give them, okay, every that, okay, one per you calculate. That's why the calculation, what suggested by Mr. William, when we calculate the impact on the GDP for that particular shortage or whatever we have now, that calculation can be put the blame to the polluters. Okay, the polluters not only on the industry side only, but also as industry is a broad sectors. We have agriculture sectors, we have manufacturing sectors, we have mining sectors. So mining sector buat pollution macam mana juga? We have also take into consideration. So as what we say, the whole supply chain need to be addressed. You know, our ecosystem need to is now, not later, it's now. We need to address it, the whole ecosystem, because every ecosystem, we need to synergize with other ecosystem. So the whole supply chain, we just cannot say, oh, this is my supply chain, this is my ecosystem, so I'm looking at silo, I don't have any effect to other people. But you have to remember, as what we said, we always say, we have to remember what we do affect others, right? So our regulators and our policymakers must not look at silo already. Now we have to change. As I said, the COVID-19 pandemic, we have the PKP, Perintah Kawalan Pergerakan. What is the effect on the domestic consumption? And that domestic consumption actually affected our water operators' costs, right? And when we have a lower commercial punya consumption jatuh everything, it goes back, it balances up at the domestic. So domestic increases. So but we are paying at normal. As we said just now, Punita, you address it correctly. When we say that in commercial, okay, we spend 8 hours or 12 hours in our factory or in our place. So we consume waters and we are paying at commercial rate, right? So as a consumer, we as a private, we should be as considered a domestic. So that is the part and the balance we have to do. Yes, as we said just now, we agree that SPAN need to look into these matters. Okay, water disruption, one part. Until now, correct me if I'm wrong, do we have a 1 year from the water operators, 1 year schedule of their maintenance for everybody to look at? Do we have? No. Usually what we have, 1 week dari sekarang kita nak buat tukar pipe, then they tell us. Betul? Correct? Yeah. So why can't they give us 1 year schedule? For industry, we know already, oh, this time, this month, that particular. So we can actually program ourselves, right? During you want to make this water disruption, because due to maintenance, we say this is not off track. There's during the they call it the preventive maintenance period. The water operators need to do the preventive maintenance period, right?
Yes.
So they share this information with all people. So for 1 year, because it's all been programmed. Okay?
Yeah.
So then we can actually understand, as for industry, we can actually plan ourselves during that period what we can do. If you make a schedule of 1 week or 3 days before, then you tell people, this is just like macam 40 tahun dulu lah. Sama je. You know, we have.
So I think On that subject, from what we heard in the previous panel discussion is you are right. It's not really 1 year or 2 years. It's more like dua minggu sebelum they do any maintenance need to be submitted. But it's a good suggestion where if they can actually make this maintenance schedule disruption to be publicized ahead. So kalau there is a regulator is listening today, it'd be great if you can either drop your message either in the chat box or in the Facebook comment. So we know that you are listening and you have some feedback to respond to what Encik Amir have mentioned. I like to ride on yang Encik Amir said regarding this ecosystem, right? Supply chain ecosystem, putting in the cost where it's necessary and plant it up. So William, if I'm not mistaken, you have come up with some tool that enable calculating certain costs and certain features in the water services industry. If you can share a little bit what that tool can do and whether it can be expanded out beyond the current confinement of how we measure and bringing in all this monetizing ecological ecosystem, monetizing losses to business ecosystem. Is there something can be done if you can share?
Yeah, I'm not here to sell a product or services, but
not to sell the product, but I remember seeing that a couple of months back. So I thought if that is something that is good, I guess there is a tool available which policymakers and regulators can expand to fit in, because the current approach of measuring is not right. Because it's sort of like if in any other business sector, premium customer get premium services and that is not happening, there must be some form of balancing it. I think that conversation seems like not taking place.
Yeah.
Please.
Just a 1 minute. So through the experience of the water transformation and so on and so forth, and developing the regulatory accounting framework, the tariff setting mechanism and so on and so forth. So one of the observations that I have seen throughout time is that the capacity building at the water operator, some are quite proactive, some are ever changing. So developing their business model, calibrating their future plan, like as what Encik Amir said, industries will grow. How come you don't know? You know, and that's what I was trying to address in the beginning with whatever toolkit I'm developing, because Malaysia we are progressing very slow in terms of understanding the economic side of things. We are very prone to fixing things, technical stuff. But when it comes to economics and financial, two things. We only record historical, the accounting, and what has happened. But what is going to happen, of course, it's all everybody's guess, but there needs to be planning. So what we have developed is a tool set to help the water operators to understand what's their future cost, what's their future tariff that requires attention. That's what I'm trying to promote through what I'm doing. But to bring in the whole ecosystem into what I'm doing, I think that is something that definitely will be great. But at the moment, because of the pace that we're going through is so slow, and we can't even reach to a certain level. So I don't want to look into that just yet, because I think the understanding of water operator is silo, understanding of the water catchment is silo, the understanding of sewage is silo. So none of this water ecosystem is coming together to look from a holistic point of view or circular water economy, which is not there yet. But I think we will need a lot more education. I think the ministry is trying their best to bridge this gap of a circular economy through retreatment of water. That's one of the agenda. But what I'm promoting at the moment, the unfortunate thing is that it's too early to bring all these things together. Yeah.
Okay. So hearing that, I mean, because I think one key thing seems to be like lukewarm proactiveness in the agencies that should drive changes. That could be multiple reasons, but one could be, as what William said, the lack of awareness or foresight of what need to be done. Maybe, Chamber of Commerce like yourself, working together with other NGOs, to put up this pressure on the government, to look into I mean, I understand, of course, the legal, I mean, taking people to court and all those things. I mean, uh, to punish. That's one part of it. But it doesn't really still solve your problem of not having water or not having continuous supply of water, right? So is that something that agency macam Chamber of Commerce willing to look at to sort of like drive, this kind of context, macam how William and even you shared, building ecosystem, water into the supply chain ecosystem, to show that losses, to show compounding losses, how's the impact. Sebab kadang-kadang mereka tak nampak, mereka hanya nampak, syarikat ABC tak dapat air, dia bising. So itu bukan masalah kita. Yang penting public dapat. Tapi not knowing syarikat ABC can take the business, go to Thailand, go to Singapore. And then 50 people or 100 people or 200 people are going to lose jobs because of that. So maybe agency like yours or entity like yours, can actually show government what will happen, compounding effect for today. I'm not even going to climate crisis yet. That's the last question I have for William. I'm not even going into that ecological ecosystem. So is this something that agency macam Chamber of Commerce come together and put it up to show the government an angle that they are not looking at right now? So it gives them an opportunity to see.
First of all, I think William, you can concur with me that Chamber of Commerce was not called for any talks or taken into consideration on water management. What they call is radar, the developers. So that is one part, because they don't see the industry as the biggest consumer play a part in here. They might call just because, as what I said, what our way of being driven the what we are going for. Basically, we see as development per se, not progressing development. After that, so we just now I want to develop this area. How much I just calculate now? That is definitely from the developer side. But what happened when they sell their property? Do they put actually in the water consumption? This is what 4 million milliliters. For example, I shared with you one of the government officer that actually shared with me. He says that we try to bring the FDI coming into the country. Okay, the first question was, I need 1.2 million cubic meter per day. Can you supply that? He was shocked. He was shocked because that is the first question. So he was shocked. He said, never before that a company asked me whether I need water. So what is his response? He said, okay, I'll come back and check whether I cannot. So that is one of the criteria this company is coming in. And for us, for example, when I was a CEO, first thing I did, yes, I checked whether this area actually give me enough water or not for my consumption for 5 years. But when we go back to the regulators or the water operators, no, we cannot give you because this is not in our plan. So how we want to plan? So when we are talking about growing the economy as a whole, but the infrastructure is not there. Okay, I'm talking here because I face both. I face electrical shortage and I face water during that time. Okay, until now they can't address. Already 5 years. They can't address it. When I expect whether they have ready, no. So you see, we want development. We want to give consumption. We want to give work, okay, working opportunities, employment, etc. But our basic infrastructure is not there. It doesn't work. So the disruption come into the picture. Yes, we can say the operator says, yes, I inherit 40 years old pipeline. Okay, what they do is how to replace it. How soon can they replace it to ensure that this thing doesn't happen? Okay, we have that. That's why we said if we look at all the criteria that we had, okay, when we are talking about moving forward, we are not talking. I want to talk about the pre-COVID time, but what we want to talk is after COVID. Okay, what are we planning ourselves with this scarcity of water coming into our picture? So do we actually look at groundwaters? I mean, during previous minister, long ago was Dato' the Lim Keng also mentioned about the groundwater, whether we are going to take it or not, whatever it is. But that suddenly silent, is it? We come stick to back to the Sungai again, the story about the Sungai. So Sungai and Sungai. So nobody is actually looking forward where we are going to do. And is there any initiative given to industry that use treated water again? It's not inside the any. Do you hear any tax incentive on that part? No,
No.
no.
Yes, you're right.
But what we have to look into. So if we have to build our own treatment water just to put it back into the river, into the drain, but for us to reuse it back, because now there is technology for us to reuse back. So if those who are using big consumption water, they can reuse it back. So we must give some incentive for them to go for that, right? So that it actually will help the whole ecosystem. So that is what we said. Because it's very, this is like chicken and egg question, you know. Chicken and egg. Because
I think
gangguan
this is
air ada dua jenis. Satu bekalan air kerana penyelenggaraan, we can understand. Question, why can't they give us 1 year punya planning they have so that everybody can actually plan ourselves? One part. It's very easy, right? You have already your preventive maintenance for 1 year. So just tell us and everybody will put inside their calendar, and those who are in the industries, we actually can plan what to do during that time. Either we were going to idle or either we want to do our own preventive maintenance during that time. It's good for us to do the shutdown. So there's a lot of things that we can do. So if everybody put an effort towards one simple thing, right? But the benefit, cost benefit analysis after that is greater, why not? Right, Mr. William, can you agree on that? One part. Second part, on industry itself, all right? When they have been disrupted with water, they cannot get the water. How long? Question, how long? So if you hours, yes, okay, this is unscheduled disruption, kan? Due to bencana, politics, whatever it is. But what happened if it prolonged? How do you actually compensate the industry? Because we also have to pay, you know, because it affected our supply chain. Because in our contractual, with other supply chain, if you cannot manage to send your parts, etc., there's a penalty, right? In illegal terms, you can actually look at this because you can quantify. You can get back, but whom do we get back? From the polluters, okay? Or from the regulators, or from the water operators? Is it fair? Then that is the basic question that we also look into. Because as far as the water operators have been saying, we are not making money, right? We are not making money. So that's why I said, back to the basic question, whether water operators must make money or they must be break even. Their business must be break even business, you know? Because the idea of government when they go for water operators is to ensure efficiency, effectiveness in the water. But if that two objective, you can become efficient but not effective. No point.
Susah juga.
So we must be efficient, one part. Second, must be effective. So this is two things that we must look into. So if the water operators is efficient but they're not effective, it doesn't come actually to the point, the goal, what we need to do to give privatization of water operators, because it's good as the government, right? So the industry won't benefit. Not only that, I mean, I don't want to use, I think better we use the word consumer. The consumer won't benefit, right? But the greater consumer for the industries, it will hurt them, their pocket will be hurt. But if you kena 1 tahun 4 kali, for those in Selangor, okay, for those in Selangor, you just imagine in the one that Mr. Yazid just now mentioned in Negeri Sembilan, it affected, luckily during that time is PKP. Okay, it affected our tourism. That is important. Hotels, etc. You know, so it disrupted everything. Not only the hotel operators, the restaurant owners, the resort owners, so many things. So we have to look into that. During the 5 days disruption, what happened? Yeah, this is unnatural because it's due to banjir, etc. Okay, but that we have to address it. So we have to address it according to the whole ecosystem and the supply chain that connected within 2 or 3 ecosystems. Then we can have a good framework on what to do move forward. Unless, if as what William been saying just now, if we still look at silos, or the one and the raw water, one silo, then the operators one silo, the consumer one silo, we never connected the dots. we can't see is actually interrelated. And how can we grow
Actually,
addition on that?
Actually, I'm so glad you are here and you raise all these, you dropped so many golden nuggets today. I do hope regulators or some people from ministry will be listening to this. And Sarah sir, not going to recap everything that Jamil have said, even William have said, right? So I really think that there is a need to have a lot more engagement dengan various stakeholders, because I think if the engagement is only dengan how you have put it, what is that? Current development. Kalau based on current development, not based on projected development, I think then there is a big problem. So I think there is a need to talk. Kalau conversation berlaku dengan REDA or few other agencies, that's fantastic. But then they shouldn't sort of like negate having conversation dengan Chamber of Commerce, FMM, and all those things. These are key players, economic drivers, giving us, the status. William, just now earlier you said, bringing Malaysia to a developed nation status, So these are important pillars of the society. So I do hope there are regulators listening to this, do something about it. Because some of the thing yang Jamil have given is really low-hanging fruits. Giving schedules ahead. Those things are, I know yang other part, building into ecosystem may take a bit of time, maybe a year or so. Tapi other suggestions given, having engagement, giving the schedule maintenance 2 weeks will be insufficient, 1 week lagi teruk. So these are something that can be done almost immediately. So I do hope they will listen. I want to quickly address to some of the matters raised. So Rosie have raised some issue related to water disruption in a specific area. Rosie Haji Yazid is not here, so he will not be able to respond, but we will forward your comments to him. And we have Dr. Amirul. He sympathizes with water operators when the disruption happened because public blame them, but he pity more the consumers because they experience various difficulties. So they agree dengan what Encik Ami have said about severe penalty to the consumer, to the polluters. And he also feels water operators need to be foresight better when planning for water structure facilities. Yes, that is what I think Encik Amir have mentioned a couple of times during this session. There's one question from James. It's quite a tough question, so I'll leave it kepada William and Amir whether they choose to respond or not. What James is asking is, what is your view on water state operators' main problem? Is it monopoly creates no line of sight? Monopoly, I guess he means monopolistic business. Number 2, leadership or management competence. Not a lucrative industry, hence it limiting the talents that they can absorb into the company. Or is it tariff sensitivity? Number 4, no conversation or environmental conservation or environmental concern as no need to be held responsible. So he actually saying that he's giving 4 points, whether that is what you think or your view on state water operators' main problem. Not that you have to agree or disagree, you may have other point of view. So if you can, maybe we go to William first. What do you think, William?
Okay, I'm always interested in answering the monopolistic or oligopolistic or free market. I think first we have to look at the whole economic situation of the water industry in Malaysia. Unlike in UK, where they look at rates of return on assets when it comes to privatization, then I think you can compete with various players. But in Malaysia, if the number is correct, Yazid mentioned, the cost is 50 cents. The selling price is 50 cents. The cost is 2 ringgit. Okay, so the idea of having too many players or even oligopoly can be a challenge, because ultimately water is right now is government centric. It's water for the people, water for the industries, water for the growth. Okay, and if we have not reached to a point of recovery, I'm not talking about profitability, Jamira. Even profitability also, I think the regulator is trying to manage it, because there is a process in place. It's just whether they have implemented it. I'm not certain of that yet. But because we are at this stage of can't even recover the cost, because what you see today, even you open the statistics from Malaysian Water Industry Guide, it does not reflect the true cost. Just the water operator cost. It has not even reflected the cost yet. Not to even mention the environment and so on and so forth. So when you got such a model, it is still it's still government centric to develop that sector. Once the sector has reached certain level, so I take example TNB. Once the NP has reached at a level, a certain level where they can sustain, then when it privatized, then you can have many players. You can have oligopoly, you can have many players, or you can have single players, yes, but also looking at the infrastructure, okay? And you can control that. But when it comes to water, we have not even reached to the point of any recovery to many of them. Pahang, tariff has not increased for almost 30 years. And that's my key point for, is monopolistic in water good or bad? I'm not saying it's good or bad. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But looking at the current economic situation, you can't get private sector to come in, selling at 50 cents, cost at 2 ringgit. How? Somebody has to fill up the gap. Government? I don't think so. So that is one issue on monopolistic. I think the rest of the question, I think, I couldn't get a lot of the points. But obviously, when it comes to the whole circular economy issue, it needs to be there. We were involved in the tariff setting mechanism, so we know. I mean, it's publicly available anyway, of how the new tariff is going to be calculated. Unfortunately, it's not implemented yet. That takes care of certain areas, trying to bring two ecosystems together. But then again, like I said, it's very slow in progress because of whatever environment is going on.
I think one component, one of the point of that question is there. He's asking, is the industry so small and not lucrative enough to attract the best and the brightest to join this?
I don't agree.
Yes,
we have the brightest engineers, we have the brightest management in doing that, but they are not given the free way of doing things. That is our biggest problem, actually. Not because of monopolistic, monopolized, etc. Because it's a business that actually go for essential items for human being. So we cannot put same level as normal businesses that based on profit and just because of profiteering there. So we have to put some basis on that particular part. And I think, and in our framework, in our country, yes, we put that framework there, right? There's a certain percentage there. The only thing is that they are not given the free way of doing things on how to make things better. What we are very concentrating basically on our policy is to make things efficient, but not effective. The most important part for us as for industry players, everything can be efficient, but it's not effective, is no good, no way, right? Because when you become effective, I mean dalam bahasa Melayu dia berkesan. You boleh menjadi lancar tapi tak berkesan. Okay, kereta boleh bawa 110 km sejam tapi tidak berkesan sebab you accident. No point, banyak holes. Betul, you faham tak? Maksudnya analogi yang kita bawa ni, you boleh bawa kereta 110 km, 200 km tapi pothole every 1 meter. No point, tak efektif, tak berkesan. Kereta boleh berjalan lancar. Okay, then policy maker pula terbalik pula. Contoh, jalan boleh jalan. Ambil ni macam part lah. Part you besar mana pun, tapi kalau ada kebocoran, no point. You jalan you ada bagus, kan dah bagus jalan, cantik, tar, very good. Tapi kereta yang dibenarkan boleh lalu hanya kereta 1000 cc saja. Tak guna juga. So there must be a balance. So how to balance it? That is where I said kita kena duduk bersama, bincang balance dia di mana. Baru kita akan nampak. Kalau sebab sekarang ni tak ada ukuran. Tak ada ukuran. Kita nak tanya Kak Encik William, is there any calculation made and that be acceptable for everybody, that can be used as a benchmark or a baseline for us to work with? I don't think. Just for example, saya cakap tadi, consumption yang kita ada, data tu ada, tapi siapa guna? Tak ada guna. We don't analyze the
siapa
data.
guna dan untuk apa? I think siapa guna dan untuk apa? I think that's a big question.
I have the data, but you cannot use. So you have the power. You are very bodybuilder, tapi suruh angkat balak pun tak boleh. So what for?
I really feel I really feel regulator ministries yang berkaitan and agency yang berkaitan use this opportunity. Please bring in more people into the discussion table so you can hear different things. Sebab I mean things have moved on so far and so advanced in many sectors. Like for example, now people are talking about gig economy. That is the way to go, especially for current generation. Tapi in water sector, what kind of gig economy that we are talking about? Dia masih lagi very conventional model across the board. So probably when you bring in gig economic features, you will be able to bring in the best and the brightest, the most expensive one, not really in features of permanent manpower yang you tak perlu, but ad hoc manpower yang you perlu to drive certain policies, certain agenda, designing the supply chain ecosystems, the right consultation method. Tapi kena ada some goal ahead. Otherwise, I guess we can't move forward. Anyway, we are past 30 minutes of our time. So before I end this session, would like to hear the last words from you, William, and then we go to Ami, and then we close the session. William, if you have anything to add, yeah.
Last word.
Last word for today.
Oh, last
but
word
this conversation should go.
Because I come from a consulting background and I look in strategy economics. So obviously economics would be my most favorite subject, especially what sector. So I think the system and process for tariff setting mechanism is there. It's been pushed through, not implemented. But I think tweaking it's fine. As long as we just charge tariff progressively to the consumers and balance it up with the industries, because actually consumers can afford. Because we cannot run away from the fact that there will always be a sector of B40s. Okay, in the whole income situation, there's a B40M and so on and so forth. So no matter how high of salary you go, how income you go, there will be a B40. Are you saying that B40 of 20 years from today is the same as today? That's right. 20 years later will be the same as today? Cannot be. The value is increased. And if you don't look into the tariff, it's very difficult for many even industries to thrive in Malaysia, especially a lot of focus is on domestic. And of course, the true value of water is really not taken into consideration at the moment. But at the same time, I think we need to let the market to adjust itself and for government to intervene when it's required, especially when it comes to the industrial matters. When I say market to adjust itself, meaning to say that the tariff that is put in, let the people decide. Not we don't need I'm talking of domestic. We don't need a voice to represent what we can or what we cannot. Because if I break it down to the hardcore poor, the B40, the Ms and the 20s, I can address the hardcore poor. There are mechanisms, there are incentives for the hardcore poor, so that would not be an issue. I think across the board, we made some study previously. Even you address the hardcore poor or semi-poor, in terms of incentive or even discount on certain level of water, there's no impact on the water operators. But if you start to make noise on B40 and even M40 that cannot afford water in Malaysia, I find it ludicrous. I just pulled one statistics which I just managed. It's an old number. 2006 telco under MCMC, the monthly average price of per person spending on telco is about 60 ringgit per month. 60 ringgit per month. So in a household of 4 persons, 60 times 4, okay, let's assume adult and kids and all adults, is between 120 to 240 ringgit a month just on telco. And how much are we paying on water? It's negligible. So if you want a baseline, use that as a baseline. And that's 2006 number in terms of telco. Okay, so I think the tariff remains the issue to balance up the issue of industry, the issue of policy, and the issue of disruption. Okay, but of course, like I said, we cannot make it general because disruption is also caused by parties that is not controlled by the water section. Okay, so that's my last point, I guess.
Okay, thank you, William. Jami?
Dari sudut pandangan kita Dewan, pertama, kesan gangguan memang mempunyai kesan langsung kepada industri. Persoalannya adalah bagaimana kita nak seimbangkan gangguan tersebut dengan keperluan yang ada. So cadangan kita tadi, kita supaya preventif tu buatlah 1 tahun beritahu jadual dia, kita boleh buat. Itu satu, itu paling mudah. Itu nombor 1. Nombor 2 ialah gangguan ini juga kalau kita lihat hanya dalam satu segi sektor saja, satu industri tadi, kita hanya nampak, kita tak akan nampak the whole spectrum. Tapi kalau kita generalize the whole thing pun tak kena. Because kerana contoh ni lah, contoh yang kita ambil tadi ialah pembuat botol air minuman. Mereka menggunakan air yang banyak tapi membayar harga yang sama pada tarif. Sepatutnya mereka ni ada bayar ses tambahan. Ses tambahan kepada mereka. Sebab contohnya buat RO water 60% hanya 40% saja digunakan dan 60% buang balik. So itu perlu diambil kira. Okey, itu satu, nombor 2. Nombor 3 juga kita perlu ada sinergi Saya kata sinergi between ecosystem dan juga rantaian bekalan. The supply chain and the ecosystem must be synergized to look forward. And number 4, those polluters, right? They must bear the cost that make other people suffer. That's the most important part. And the regulators, for example, if you have designated this particular commercial area, and there shouldn't be any other kedai, membaiki kereta, all that stuff, you know. So because that drainage is being planned or being designed to cater oil or whatever it is. So it goes back the pollution to the river. At the end of the day, it will disrupt the whole thing. So that should be, so the regulators must play a part also, must understand when you want to give businesses the approval, where they can make business on that particular area, this must be taken into consideration. So there must be a policy making into when you want to give approval to doing business, right? Water must be taken into consideration. Water policy must be taken into consideration. Then we can ensure that less pollution in our water system, so we don't have much disruption. Okay, because this disruption not because of this is because of polluters. So if we can manage the polluters well, then we can get less disruption and that will less impact to our economy. And the fifth part, everybody must play a part. We cannot say that, oh, this is only for the water operators, this is only for the government, this is for the state, because water is a state. It's under the jurisdiction of state. And SPAN is trying to leverage it out, like MKN, Majlis Tanah Negara, MTN. So they are trying to leverage it out, so ensurity that the water is being put in a better perspective for the whole nation. So we also must take into consideration, we must also understand that every state have their own water policy. And how does we actually interact on that particular part? We have to look into it. As for the industry, right, the impact is very real and there is no recourse at the moment because people look it as a the less prioritized thing to do. But in future, we doesn't know that any trespass to what, because it's a part of trespass. If anything happen, to the water polluters, I think the water operators, they can go bankrupt. Just because of the number of civil suit that they get, you know. So this part we have to address. Because water, another thing, Mr. William, I disagree with you if we are looking only for N40. Because water is essential item of living. So everybody should have a minimum water that you should be free, right? To be free. So you have to calculate that it should be free. But we have to pay for the cost of treating it, yes. Right? But it must be put at everybody, whether it's T10 or T20 or B40, no. Water, as for us, as for me, is a human right. We need water. So that must be specifically addressed too. So let's say everybody consume 20 meter cube, 20 meter cube. That's it. More than that, that means you are wasting it up. Yeah. So you have to pay for that base. So that is a right policy that I think we should implement. Right? And also we have to take into consideration for those who have family members that have as consumer, myself, I have 13 siblings. So our water usage is more than those who have 4 siblings or 2 siblings. So you have to be balanced up on that part. So with our current environment that we have on datas, right? So we should use these datas to be able to manage better tariff, because we should have a better tariff to suit what we're having now. So then the water operators is able to manage it out by not having a generality or leverage on everything. We cannot put everything in leverage, because leverage doesn't bring a good solution, but it can only address certain things. So what we do now, we are with data that we are able to have now, we should be able to look at every segment very seriously and find solution how to address it, right? And that will give everybody a better way forward, embracing our future.
Yeah, I think the regulator and water operator has to look at their massive data that they have at the moment.
Yeah.
I think they should match it up dengan census, match it up dengan MySejahtera, sebab I think MySejahtera is the best data collecting mechanism right now.
But it's not.
So yes. So I think I would like to thank William and also thank Encik Amir, because you have summed it up this conversation very well. There's a lot of things that need to be looked at. I do hope the regulators are not just water services regulator, tapi juga local councils, people who allow businesses who are responsible in putting up local plan, structure plan, take cognizance. Please bring these experts into your discussion table. This is something they can leverage on their experiences and knowledge, so that they can do better policies for better Malaysia. So with that, I would like to end today's panel discussion. Thank you very much. Selamat menjalankan ibadah puasa tomorrow. And with that, we are coming to an end for the first series, the fourth panel discussion. So from next week, we will start siri kedua, which is back to basic, kembali kepada asas memahami what is air dan memahami kitaran air. I think that is a knowledge that is essential for everyone. So we will catch up with you again, all of you, next week, Tuesday, as our normal time. And salam sejahtera. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Jamil.
Terima kasih. Jumpa lagi kita. Selamat berpuasa kepada semua pendengar dan juga forum air. Thank you very much for Punita and Mr. William. If you need our services or our sharing of knowledge, yes, we are easily be contacted. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Habis live.
Belum.
Okay, Punita, thank you very much. Send my regards to Suresh, your brother.
I will.
I think he must know me.
Yes, I guess he does. I will send to him, Amin. No problem.
Yeah.
And